Most people imagine survival as a physical challenge. They picture running out of food, running out of ammunition, or facing an enemy powerful enough to destroy them. Movies have taught us that danger usually comes from the outside. It's the monster in the shadows, the invading army on the horizon, or the disaster waiting to strike. But Alien Invasion, SUM-1, presents a much darker possibility. What if the greatest threat isn't outside your shelter at all? What if the thing most likely to break you is sitting beside you every day, silently growing stronger inside your own mind? The film takes place in a future where humanity is already losing a war against an alien species. But beneath the science fiction and military conflict lies a surprisingly human story. Because while the aliens may be the enemy everyone can see, loneliness becomes the enemy that's impossible to escape. And by the end of the movie, it's clear that isolation can destroy a person far more efficiently than any creature hunting them in the dark. The world of SUM-1 is already exhausted by the time the story begins. Humanity has been pushed to the edge by an alien invasion that has transformed Earth into a hostile battlefield. Cities have collapsed, normal life has disappeared, and the remnants of human civilization survive inside heavily protected underground shelters. The war isn't being fought with dreams of victory anymore. It's being fought simply to avoid extinction. Against this backdrop, a young soldier named SUM-1 is assigned a mission that sounds straightforward on paper. He is sent alone to a remote observation tower positioned above the surface. His job is to monitor alien activity, protect the perimeter around the underground colonies, and report any threats. It is the kind of assignment military planners probably view as practical and necessary. For SUM-1, however, it becomes something much more dangerous. At first, the isolation appears manageable. He arrives with discipline, training, and confidence in his purpose. Like many people thrown into lonely situations, he believes his mental strength will be enough. After all, he's a soldier. He's been prepared for hardship. The tower contains supplies, communication equipment, and enough resources to keep him alive. Technically, he has everything required for survival. But that's exactly where the film begins exposing an uncomfortable truth. Human beings don't merely survive on food, water, and shelter. We survive on connection. We survive on interaction. We survive on the constant reassurance that our experiences are shared by other people. Remove those things, and even a perfectly secure environment can become a prison. The days begin blending together. The routine never changes. He watches, he waits, he patrols, he reports, then he repeats the process again. At first, this structure provides stability. Eventually, it creates something closer to psychological suffocation. Every day becomes indistinguishable from the one before it. Every moment feels trapped inside an endless loop. The tower, designed to protect him, slowly starts feeling like a cage. What's fascinating about the movie is how little it relies on traditional action during these stretches. Instead of constantly showing alien attacks, it focuses on the gradual erosion of SUM-1's mental state. The enemy isn't rushing toward him. The enemy is time itself. As the isolation deepens, small cracks begin appearing in his perception. Communication with command becomes increasingly impersonal. Conversations that should make him feel connected only emphasize how alone he truly is. Every message feels transactional. Every interaction reminds him that he's little more than another piece of military equipment stationed far away from everyone else. The mission that once gave him purpose begins feeling meaningless. Questions start creeping into his mind. How much of the information he's receiving is actually true? How much of what he's been told can be trusted? Is the war unfolding exactly as he believes it is? These doubts don't emerge because he's weak. They emerge because loneliness changes the way people process reality. One of the most unsettling aspects of prolonged isolation is that there's nobody around to challenge your thoughts. Under normal circumstances, our beliefs are constantly tested through interaction with other people. We share ideas, receive feedback, and adjust our understanding of the world. Alone, that process disappears. Thoughts stop being challenged and start echoing endlessly. The mind becomes both the speaker and the audience. The film slowly transforms from a survival story into a psychological mystery. SUM-1 starts noticing inconsistencies. Certain details don't align, certain explanations feel incomplete. The longer he remains isolated, the harder it becomes to distinguish genuine discoveries from paranoia. The audience experiences this uncertainty alongside him. We begin questioning the information he's receiving because he's questioning it. We begin doubting reality because he's doubting reality. The movie cleverly traps viewers inside the same psychological environment that's consuming its protagonist. What makes these sections so effective is that the aliens become almost secondary. They're present, they're dangerous, they represent a legitimate threat, yet their physical danger never feels as immediate as the invisible pressure building inside SUM-1's mind. Every lonely night amplifies his fears. Every unanswered question grows larger. Every silence becomes heavier. The tower isn't merely isolating him from other people. It's isolating him from certainty itself. As his suspicions intensify, SUM-1 becomes increasingly determined to uncover the truth behind his mission. He begins pushing against the boundaries established by command. Rules that once seemed reasonable start looking suspicious. Information that once seemed trustworthy starts looking manipulated. The story gains momentum not because the aliens suddenly attack in greater numbers, but because SUM-1's need for answers becomes stronger than his willingness to obey. In many ways, loneliness creates the rebellion. If he were surrounded by others, their presence might reinforce the system. Alone, he has nothing except his own questions. The deeper he investigates, the more the film blurs the line between external conflict and internal conflict. Every discovery carries emotional weight because it's filtered through months of isolation. By this stage, SUM-1 isn't simply fighting for survival. He's fighting to preserve his sense of reality. The war outside the tower and the war inside his head begin merging into a single struggle. That's what gives the movie its unique tension. The audience can never be entirely certain whether the greatest threat is what he discovers, or what isolation has already done to him. Eventually, the truths hidden beneath the surface begin emerging, and the film reveals that the world is far more complicated than the simple narrative presented to him. Without spoiling every detail, the revelations force SUM-1 to everything he believed about his mission, his commanders, and the larger conflict surrounding humanity's survival. The answers he's searching for don't bring peace. They bring even more uncertainty. Yet by this point, uncertainty is almost preferable to the emptiness he has been living with. The climax feels less like the conclusion of a military mission and more like the culmination of a psychological journey. The choices SUM-1 makes aren't driven solely by tactical considerations. They're driven by months of emotional deprivation, mounting suspicion, and an overwhelming need to find meaning in a situation that increasingly feels detached from reality. Every decision carries the weight of isolation. Every action reflects a man who has spent too long alone with his thoughts. What makes Alien Invasion, SUM-1 memorable isn't its aliens, its technology, or even its post-apocalyptic setting. Plenty of science fiction movies feature those elements. What separates this film is its willingness to explore how fragile the human mind can become when separated from meaningful connection. The aliens create the circumstances, but loneliness creates the transformation. The invasion sets the stage, but isolation drives the story. The movie quietly challenges one of the most common myths about strength. We often admire people who appear completely self-sufficient. We celebrate individuals who claim they don't need anyone. We associate independence with resilience. But SUM-1 suggests something very different. Human beings aren't designed to function in complete emotional isolation. Our minds rely on relationships the same way our bodies rely on food. Remove those relationships for long enough, and psychological survival becomes just as difficult as physical survival. That's why the title of this breakdown matters. Why loneliness can break you faster than any enemy isn't just a clever angle attached to the movie. It's the hidden lesson buried inside nearly every scene. The aliens threaten SUM-1's body, but loneliness threatens his identity. The aliens can attack his position, but isolation attacks his perception of reality. The aliens can kill him, but loneliness slowly changes who he is long before death ever arrives. In the real world, most of us will never be trapped inside a surveillance tower during an alien invasion. But the emotional truth remains surprisingly relevant. People can be surrounded by technology, surrounded by information, and even surrounded by other people while still experiencing profound loneliness. And when that loneliness persists long enough, it begins influencing how they think, what they believe, and how they interpret the world around them. The danger isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's gradual, sometimes it's invisible. Sometimes it arrives so quietly that we don't notice its effects until they've already changed us. Alien Invasion, SUM-1 ultimately reminds us that survival has always been about more than staying alive. It's about preserving the parts of ourselves that make life meaningful: purpose, trust, connection, hope. Once those things begin disappearing, even the strongest person can start unraveling. And that's what makes the film unsettling long after it ends. It suggests that the most dangerous enemy isn't necessarily the one waiting outside the walls. Sometimes it's the silence waiting inside them. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe to Beyond the Scene because the best movies aren't just entertainment. They're lessons hiding in plain sight.